My mom didn't save dessert for my son this Thanksgiving. She said he didn't deserve any after the way he behaved. Meanwhile, my sister's kids got seconds. I helped my son put on his coat and we quietly left. At 10:13 p.m., my dad texted me, "Transfer the mortgage tomorrow." I didn't argue. I just stared at the message. I'm not sure what's worse than humiliating your own grandchild to make a point. But whatever that is, my parents are already there. Playing favorites isn't new to them. I've gotten used to it. Watching my mom's face light up when my sister walks in, or hearing my dad call my brother's kids his real legacy. I've tolerated the subtle jabs, the eye rolls whenever I mention something Ethan does well. The way they pass us in the hallway like we're guests in their museum of golden grandchildren. But this time felt different. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional. They've always treated me like a failed experiment, the firstborn who didn't turn out the way they hoped. I wasn't rebellious, just quiet, and eventually independent. I stopped asking them to care about things they never would. They wanted control. I gave them distance. They've never forgiven me for it. Things got worse after my divorce. I didn't go to them for help, didn't cry on their couch. I moved out, got a job that paid the bills, and bought my own house. They hated that. Hated that I didn't need their money or approval. My dad offered to fold my mortgage into the family trust, said it would streamline things. But I knew what that meant. He wanted his name on the deed, his say in my life. I turned him down politely. Since then, my independence has been treated like an insult. My brother Ryan sees it. He once told me, "You're the only one they can't manipulate. That's why they pretend you don't exist." And he's right. Ryan's not part of the problem, but he doesn't always step in either. Thanksgiving was the breaking point. Ethan and I arrived early. He made cranberry sauce and wanted to show my mom. She smiled, barely glanced at it, and placed it behind her store-bought version on the counter. I didn't say a word. I rarely do anymore. Dinner was the usual chaos. My sister's kids got first pick of everything. My dad opened a bottle of wine and said it was for adults who appreciate quality, but then poured a glass for my sister's 12-year-old because she's mature for her age. Ethan asked why there weren't any mashed potatoes this year. Not rudely, just curious. My mom laughed and said, "Because some people don't need any more starch." She meant him, and we both knew it. He didn't react, just lowered his head and kept eating. After dinner, Ethan was excited for dessert. He loves my mom's pumpkin cheesecake and had helped set the dessert plates. My sister's kids got their slices first, big ones. They were already halfway done when my mom got to the end of the tray. Ethan stood there, waiting, smiling. She didn't even look at him, just said, flatly, "You didn't earn dessert after how you acted." The room went silent. One of my sister's twins asked for seconds and got them. Ethan turned to me and whispered, "It's okay." That broke me. I helped him into his coat, and we left without a word. No goodbyes, no excuses. At home, I made him a mug of hot cocoa and let him have the cookies we baked the night before. He didn't say much, just smiled, tired. At 10:13 p.m., my phone buzzed again. "Dad, transfer the mortgage tomorrow. Don't be late." No context, no acknowledgement of what happened. I didn't reply. I just stared at the message until the screen went dark. And I sat there thinking about how many times I'd let this kind of thing slide. How many holidays I'd brushed off, because that's just how they are. But watching my son be dismissed like that, deliberately, cruelly, something inside me finally went still. The next morning, I transferred the mortgage, but not the way he expected, and definitely not for his benefit. If they wanted me gone, they were about to see what that really meant. I didn't hear from them the next day. No text, no call to ask if Ethan was okay. My dad got his precious transfer, so in his mind, everything was fine. My mom posted photos from dinner online, long captions about family, gratitude, love. Love. The word almost made me laugh. That night, I couldn't stop replaying the moment when she told Ethan he hadn't earned dessert. The quiet way he accepted it, like he already knew there was no point arguing. That's when I stopped making excuses for them. 2 days later, Ethan had a soccer game. Ryan showed up like he always does, with his youngest tagging along. He's the only one in my family who still makes the effort, no strings attached. After the game, while the kids ran off to play, Ryan finally asked what really happened at Thanksgiving. He said Mom told everyone Ethan had acted out and that she was teaching him a lesson about respect. I asked if he believed that. He shook his head, said he'd seen how she talks to Ethan before, and didn't believe her story for a second. Then he said something that surprised me. Tell me what you want me to do. Not what happened, not how can I help, but what do you want me to do? Like he'd already chosen a side. I told him the truth. I was done. Done with the guilt trips, the financial control, the pretending. I said I wanted to cut ties completely, even if that meant walking away from the family trust. Ryan didn't even flinch. He said he understood. He told me that he and his wife had noticed the way Mom and Dad treated me and Ethan for years, but hadn't wanted to interfere. I told him they didn't need to interfere. Just stop shielding them from consequences. That night, while I was putting Ethan to bed, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. It was a photo of my sister's kids, smiling and holding up the leftover cheesecake like trophies. Under it, she'd written, "Next time, maybe Ethan will earn a slice." I stared at it for a full minute, trying to figure out if she was trying to be cruel or if she honestly thought that was funny. Either way, it didn't matter. I didn't show Ethan. I deleted the photo and blocked her number, at least for the night. The next morning, I called Ryan. I told him I wanted out of everything tied to our parents. The trust account, the family investments, the mortgage link, all of it. If they wanted to act like I didn't belong, I'd make it official. He agreed right away. Said he'd talk to the family attorney and get the process started. I could hear the weight in his voice, not pity, just finality. By midweek, my dad called twice. I didn't answer either time. The voicemail he left sounded rehearsed, somewhere between disappointment and authority. He said he'd noticed some movement in the accounts and wanted to make sure there weren't any misunderstandings. There weren't. For the first time in my life, I was completely certain. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing everything down. Every small moment where they belittled me or Ethan. Every backhanded comment disguised as advice. Every time I'd been told I was too sensitive, too cold, too ungrateful. I wasn't writing it for them. I was writing it for me, so I'd never forget why I was doing this. Thanksgiving wasn't just the final straw. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. Proof that they'd rather break their own family than admit they were wrong. They thought I'd swallow it again, that I'd show up at Christmas smiling like always. Not this time. About a week after Thanksgiving, my mom sent one of her trademark group emails. Subject line, Christmas plans. 3 exclamation points. Like she was hosting a celebration instead of trying to cover up what happened. She listed everything. Who was bringing what time dinner would be, how she wanted everyone to wear matching sweaters for family unity. No mention of Ethan. No mention of what she said to him. No acknowledgement that we walked out. She signed it off with a line about letting go of past tension and starting fresh for the sake of the grandchildren. That was her version of an apology, rewriting the story so she could play the peacemaker while sweeping her cruelty under the rug. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. 2 days later, Ryan called. He said he'd met with the family attorney, like we talked about. The trust could be split. Technically difficult, but doable. We'd each have control over our portions, and once mine was separated, Mom and Dad would lose any say over how I used it. I agreed instantly. Ryan hesitated, said Dad already knew. He'd gotten wind of the request through the firm. Apparently, Dad called the attorney himself and tried to delay the paperwork. Said I was being emotional and that this would blow over once I calmed down. He called me emotional. That was his defense. Not that I was hurt, not that I had a point, just that I was being irrational. Like 30 years of being dismissed could be reduced to a bad mood. Ryan forwarded me a copy of the email. Dad had CC'd him, but not me. The line that stuck with me read, "Laura is unstable right now. Please don't take irreversible actions based on a temporary outburst." Unstable. I read it 3 times. He didn't say she's upset. He said she's unstable. I sat with that for a while. Later that night, Ryan texted again. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I replied, "Absolutely. And don't just do it for me. Do it so your kids don't grow up thinking this is normal." He didn't answer for a few minutes. Then finally sent back, "We're not going to Christmas either." That's when things shifted. I wasn't just the difficult daughter anymore. I was the one who finally broke the spell. But of course, my parents didn't let it go. Mom called 3 times in one day. I ignored them all. Then she sent a text. "I don't know what kind of lies Ryan is feeding you, but you're letting him destroy this family." Lies, destroy, classic. No ownership, no accountability, just another attempt to control the story. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I forwarded the message to Ryan, who replied with one line. "She's scared. She should be." Then my sister reached out, said Mom was acting strange, crying in the kitchen, and Dad was pacing like he was preparing for battle. She asked what was really going on and hoped we weren't overreacting about that dessert thing. I asked her one question. "Did you see what Mom did to Ethan at Thanksgiving?" Silence. "Did you see the look on his face? Did you even ask why we left early?" Still nothing. I left it there. She hasn't messaged me since. A few nights later, just after dinner, there was a knock on the door. It was almost dark. Ethan was finishing his homework at the table. I checked the peephole. It was my dad. I didn't open it. He knocked again, harder. I stood there watching him shift his weight, uncomfortable, not used to being ignored. Ethan asked, "Who is it?" I said, "Nobody important," and for once, I meant it. For the first time in my life, I wasn't saying it out of anger or self-defense. I genuinely didn't need anything from them anymore, and that terrified them more than anything else ever could. By the time Christmas week arrived, I assumed they'd finally give up. They'd already tried everything: guilt, control, silence, even public shaming. I figured when none of that worked, they'd stop. They didn't. On the morning of December 21st, I heard a knock at the door. Certified mail. Inside the envelope was a typed letter with my dad's name printed in the return address. Not handwritten, formal, cold. Attached was a copy of a statement from their accountant, along with a short note from my dad. A letter detailed the potential tax complications that could come from splitting the family trust. One section was bolded. We strongly advise against sudden, emotionally motivated actions that could impact family property and long-term equity. I read the whole thing at my kitchen table while Ethan sat nearby, gluing felt to a school project. I didn't say a word. I folded the letter, slipped it back into the envelope, and dropped it straight into the trash. They still thought I was bluffing, that if they applied enough pressure, financial or emotional, I'd cave. But they were pushing too hard, and worse, they still underestimated me. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Ryan. He called 5 minutes later. No small talk. "Hey," he said, "there's something you need to see." He emailed me a scanned document, one I'd never seen before, an old amendment to the Lake House Agreement. It was that vacation property they'd remodeled years ago into some grand family retreat. Apparently, when I helped with part of the down payment a decade earlier, they'd added me as a temporary co-signer, supposedly just until the refinancing went through. Except they'd never removed my name. They forgot. Ryan had noticed it while reviewing his own refinancing paperwork. And then it hit him. If I was still listed as a co-owner, they couldn't do anything major with the property. No selling, leasing, or transferring without my written consent. Then he said something I didn't expect. "They're trying to lease it to a company this summer. Big deal. 5 figures a month." I went quiet. Not because I was surprised they were cashing in, but because they'd never said a word. No mention. No courtesy call. Not even a fake offer to cut me in. Ryan asked, "Do you want to block it?" "Absolutely," I said. He sent me the property manager's contact information. I emailed them a formal statement of partial ownership, along with a copy of the original deed. I made it clear I wasn't authorizing any commercial use and wouldn't be signing off on new agreements. 2 days later, Mom called 6 times in a row. I didn't pick up. Then came the voicemail. It started calm, then escalated. She said I was sabotaging the family's financial goals, that Ethan needed to learn his place, and that if I kept pushing, I'd regret it. Then came the part that sealed everything. She said, "You may have your name on paper, but that doesn't make you part of this family." I listened to it twice. It wasn't anger anymore that I felt. It was clarity. They had finally said out loud what they'd been showing me for years, that we were outsiders, that love was conditional, that belonging was a privilege they controlled. I forwarded the voicemail to Ryan. He didn't say much, just texted back, "That's it then." And I agreed. That was it. The next morning, I sent my attorney a message authorizing the full separation from the family trust and all related assets. Everything tied to them. Gone. It wasn't about revenge. It was about peace. They wanted control. I wanted freedom. And for the first time, I realized those two things couldn't coexist. I expected things to calm down after that. They didn't. In January, I started getting random emails from distant relatives, cousins, an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years, all repeating the same vague lines. "You know your parents aren't doing well. They're heartbroken over what you did." It was clear my parents were spreading their version of the story, painting themselves as victims, me as ungrateful. At first, I wanted to defend myself, to explain what really happened. But then I realized I didn't owe anyone that. I'd spent years justifying myself to people who never listened. I wasn't doing it anymore. I started focusing on small, normal things, making breakfast with Ethan, reading before bed, letting silence exist without anxiety filling it. The quiet was strange at first. I'd gotten so used to chaos that peace felt unnatural. But day by day, it started feeling like home. Then one afternoon, Ryan came over with his daughter. The kids ran around the yard, chasing each other, and for a moment, everything felt easy. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a printed photo. The lake house, taken years ago, back when it still meant something. The four of us on the dock, smiling, the sun behind us. On the back, he'd written one line. "You didn't lose a family. You just stopped belonging to the wrong one." I don't think he meant it as anything profound, but it stuck with me because it was true. I hadn't destroyed a family. I'd simply stopped participating in the illusion of one. For years, I believed love meant endurance, staying, forgiving, explaining. But I was wrong. Love also means boundaries. It means protecting yourself and the people who depend on you. Sometimes the only way to keep peace in your life is to let certain people remove themselves from it. Now, months later, my parents still haven't called, and I don't expect them to. Ethan's growing up fast. He laughs more, sleeps better, doesn't ask anymore why we don't visit Grandma and Grandpa. And when he does, someday, I'll tell him the truth, gently, simply, that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally will make you prove it instead. And that when they do, it's okay to stop trying, because walking away isn't giving up. It's finally starting over.